And that way you guys are positioned pretty well, not only for the buying side, but for the listing side. Very important, because a lot of times, or even on the buying side, we just go with what the, if we're on the buying side, we just go with what the listing agent says. And I try to tell realtors all the time, don't listen to them. Try to get that budget and let me review it, because there's a lot of things within a budget that you are not going to be able to, or you may not know how to decipher as a listing agent or the buyer's agent, which is kind of why we're doing the presentation today. But most importantly, just considering somebody else's word is not really going to be the best until I can kind of, get a look at it. So let me record here. All right, perfect. Let me start pulling up a budget. So actually, we'll go with some guidelines really quick. First off, because this is going to be important when we're actually reading the budget. So let's share my screen here. Here we go. So one guideline here that I pretty much live by when I'm looking at budgets is this one right here, okay? So this is directly from Fannie Mae. It says, to determine whether the association has a minimum annual budgeted replacement reserve allocation of 10%, the lender must divide the annual budgeted replacement reserve allocation by the association's annual budgeted assessment income, which includes regular common expense fees. The following types of income may be excluded from the reserve calculation. So this is the thing. These are the things that could be deducted or excluded, which is why I tell client realtors all the time, if it's right at 7-8%, send it to me. There's a chance that we're going to be able to deduct something from it. So incidental income on which the project does not rely for ongoing operations, maintenance, or capital improvements. Income collected for utilities that would typically be paid by individual unit owners, such as cable TV or internet access. Income allocated to reserve accounts, and special assessment income. So when we're looking at budgets here, I have two open. Let me open up the other two here. And let's kind of sift through them. We'll look at them in order. So this one, really quick. 2023. Okay. This is actually a perfect budget to kind of go with. But first, let me look at one. Yeah, we'll do this one first. Okay. So this budget offhand, you're going to see on every single budget right here, the income is typically in the beginning, and then you have expenses at the bottom. And then typically within the expenses, you'll see reserve contribution expense usually. And so when I'm looking at the income, this one doesn't have it, but sometimes it'll have miscellaneous income, interest earned, operating accounts. Sometimes you'll see income from like this miscellaneous income. What they may mean is technically when we have a buyer and they apply for the association, $100, that's part of the income for the association. People will consider that. So what we're looking at always is going to be the typical maintenance income, maintenance fees, not everything added up under that. Okay. So in this case here for 2023, because that's what we're looking at, 2022 was last year. So 2023, their general maintenance fees is $32,576. That means that they need to have $3,257 technically in order for them to have 10%. Well, they're at $3,200. They're only $500 short from technically having 10% reserves, right? Because they're right at like literally 9.8. So I look at this offhand, I'm like, perfect. This is good. Most likely going to make this happen. Now I look at expenses, and this is probably not, once you see the other ones, you'll understand, but I look at these expenses and I'm like, holy crap, there's nothing that I can deduct here, right? So realistically speaking, the only thing you can deduct from these expenses, because these are all things that the association needs in order to be able to continue operations for the association in general. So really, the only thing you can deduct here is pretty much water service at $60. That's it. Water and sewer is usually what you can deduct. And then you can also deduct this reserve contribution expense, which you think would help you, but you're not considering that we didn't even add that into the income originally. So if we're at 35,776 minus 3,200, we're still at that 32,576 originally, right? So 32,576 minus $60, you're only at 32,516. So you still don't have 10%. So this budget looks almost perfect, but it does not have 10% reserves because there's no deductions. Their expense sheet is very, very clean. which is a good thing, I guess, for them, but a bad thing when we're trying to really piece things together. Because if it was 2022, we would have been fine. You see, in 2022, they had 29,117. Their reserve contribution was 3,600. We could do that all day. In this case, they lowered their reserve contribution. They increased some of their expenses from last year, as we can see. And from that, we're not able to actually give them anything back. So this actually is not a budget that we can get to do 10% reserves, even though it is really, 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 really close. Okay. Now we have, let's see, this one here. This one I think was like kind of backwards, right? Or no. Budget, these are expenses. Where's the income? Cypress Bend. No, that there was an income somewhere. Just missing a second page. I don't see income on here. I see expenses. But I believe this one was approved. Let me double check here. We're at 2023. So on the right. Okay. Yeah. So the income is going to be the same thing typically as the expenses. It's usually a wash, right? So in this one, for some reason, I don't see the actual income that they're getting from their association or their maintenance fees, which would probably be something that the condo will ask me for. I thought I saw it originally, but it's not there. But this one's pretty straightforward, right? 1.271, which means that in terms of reserves, we need 10% of that, which would be $127,000. 127,184 would be what we need for 10%. In this case, we've got 253,219. So we're way above, pretty much double the amount of reserves that we can get. So this is a pretty much clear-cut, straightforward budget that almost anybody will tell you we can get this one done. Okay, because there is nothing. You can technically deduct some things. We're not going to necessarily need to, so we don't even worry about that on this specific budget, because we know $253,219 for the reserves, and that means that there's they're taking 1.271 in terms of income, so they're kind of a wash. The only thing on this budget that would concern me as a loan officer is the fact that it doesn't say common area, it says recreation area. You guys know if it's a recreational lease, it's considered non-warrantable by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, right? So this wording would probably is the one thing that stands out to me, and I would kind of double check and make sure with the listing agent, hey, there is no recreational lease in place, right? This is the association owns everything. For those of you guys that don't know, a recreational lease would be that the recreation area, the pool, spa, that pretty much that common area that everybody's able to go to. A recreational lease would mean that is still owned by a third party, whether that be an original builder or another entity in general, and that association is on a lease. And so what happens is the association technically doesn't own it. That is considered non-warrantable by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac standards, because that's something where in the future, when that lease renews for the association, that third party can essentially charge more, which will increase that budget over time as well, and affect the association owners. Okay, so this is another budget here. I think this one we do need to do a little bit of digging. Oh no, 70,000. Okay, perfect. So this one's pretty clear cut. I think it's the first one that we are able to have a little bit of fun with. But this one, I like it because it shows 4 different things here. So you would think, oh crap, I need $946,883. I need basically $94,000 of reserve. You do not. Okay, we're only looking at maintenance assessment. The money that they bring in from the unit owners, that is it. So 582,197, we don't need 94,000. We only need 58,000. And the reserve assessments, 70,000 already covers that. These POA maintenance fees, we don't need them. This rental income, we don't need it. Let's say we did, just for the sake of it, right? Because this one we'll still be able to do some deductions on. So that means we definitely don't need the reserve assessments. We have to minus that out, right? Because you're going to double dip if you count this. So we're going to do 946,883 minus 70,062. So really what we need is 87. That number is 876,821. So we need 87,682. So we need an extra we need to cover an extra $17,000 in the budget. So we come down here, we look, is there any expenses here that we can remove? There's two from what I see. Okay, remember this picture here. Cable TV or internet access. We have cable TV and internet here. So 122,700 out of this 876,821. That's our number, right? We're not doing 946. We're doing this number because it's the 946 minus the 70,000 reserve. So 876 minus how much are they getting in a year from cable and internet? Minus 122,700 gives us 754,121. Okay. Is there anything else that could be removed from this if we needed to? We don't, but for the sake of it, the other thing that you can remove is water and sewer. Okay. Don't ask me why. I think that that's something that you need in order to run the association. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac say you don't. Okay. So now we'll minus out another 122,000. That means that our budget, our reserves, really, we only need $632,121. That's all we need in terms of 10% of that being 63,021. We have that covered at 70,062. So either way you slice it, we're able to kind of get this budget. But realistically speaking, all you want to look at is that maintenance assessment, 582,197, the reserves covering that, because these are extra fees that the association is getting in, which is great. But in terms of the reserve funding, we only need these two numbers. Okay. And now on this one specifically, this one we're getting total income of 300. That's quarterly. Yearly, $1,373,942. Okay, for the year 2023. They're getting this much from 2 bedrooms and this much from 3 bedrooms in terms of what their total association incomes are. So we got to use both, right? Because this is maintenance fees in general. So we're using that full $1,373,942. So if we come down here, we need to have $137,394 in a reserve. Well, in this case, we only got $117,958. That's not good, right? But we've got cable TV. We got cable TV here. So we're going to do the same thing. That $1,373,942 from that expense, or because technically we're looking at the expenses here, we're minusing out cable TV. That's not something that's going to be required from for the association to be able to operate, right? So now we're at, once we minus that out, 1.223,723. We're not there yet, right? We're almost there. We're about $5,000 short. So let me look and see. We need everything else here. The Fannie Freddie doesn't let me deduct anything else except, let me see, for water, sewer, waste removal, 205,142. So we know we only need 5,000. This will do it right here. So once we get that 1,223,723 minus 117,958 gives us 1.1. So really, we only need $110,000 of reserves. We've got 117. So this budget is actually approvable for Fannie Mae full review. Okay, and these are things here that typically, specifically banks will not do any sort of deductions, but we know that these are actual Fannie Mae guidelines. You see it right here, right? Income allocated to reserve accounts, which was the example in the first one, right? We can deduct this automatically. Any sort of special assessment income, which is typically those other, POA and fees and stuff like that we saw, which was right here, POA maintenance fees, typically stuff like that, which is why we're only really looking at that maintenance assessment, which includes regular common areas. So it says here by the association's annual budgeted assessment income. So that's all we're looking at is that top number. And then the reserve, making sure that the reserve is 10% of that. Okay. So when you're looking at a budget, two main things you're typically going to be able to exclude to make things work. Okay. So if you haven't written it down yet, write it down. 3, cable TV, internet, water, and sewer. Okay. And what you do is you deduct it from the total income or expense, doesn't matter because they're typically both the same, right? And then once you deduct those things, is now the reserve contribution that you're receiving at 10% or more of that. If it is, that budget's good to go. Okay. On face value, if you look at this budget, if a listing agent looks at this budget, oh, there's 103.73, 10% of that's 137. We only have 117. This budget's no good. right? Which is not the case. This is going to qualify for a full review. Budget is from High Greens Inc. Okay, this one, same thing. 946,883, only 70,000. No, it's actually 582, 70,000. This one qualifies for full review. Okay, this one's straightforward. All right, 253, 1.2, full review easily. This one, no good, even though it's only $500. So you can kind of see two extremes here, right? The extreme of we can make it work, or you don't need to make it work. You don't need to make it work, even though it looks like you may need to, but you really don't. We can make it work. Only $500 short, can't make it work because of their expenses. There's nothing that you could really take out here besides maybe the water service, which is only $60. Okay. And then the last thing that I kind of want to show you guys as well that comes with it, because this is the number one question that I'm getting right now for down payment assistance. Okay. I've said this before, but I kind of want to go over it because I'm still getting the same questions, and I want to make sure that you guys understand. So if you don't, ask away, okay? That way I can try to maneuver, maybe explain it a little bit, better. But when we're looking at down payment assistance programs, and I think it's specifically more so for Broward because of those clients that qualify for the Broward, the 80% area median income or below, they are lower income borrowers, and those pre-approvals are going to be much, much lower as well. And so within those price points, right, you may be at 200,000 or less for the pre-approval for Broward County. You're looking at condos. More specifically, you're looking at condos that don't have budgets or good budgets as of right now, right? Things are going to change within the next couple of years. But it's important to understand a condo that does not have a budget is what will put you from a full review to a limited review, okay? Those are the two differences. A full review, you can treat it as long as you get the condo documentation in and there's nothing crazy, no litigation, nothing like that, but you can treat it almost like if it was a single family townhouse, stuff like that, where you can do the maximum combined loan to value in the hundreds, right? 105, 105 is usually the max. It's a full review. It's a regular, minimum down payment loan. On a limited review, you are pretty much maxed out. If you're doing a second home or investment, 75%. But you're maxed out at 90% loan to value, combined loan to value, and this is also for a HELOC as well, which is the HCLTV, okay? 90% is the max. Broward County, even though it becomes forgivable after 15 years, when that loan is done at the time of closing, the client is signing off on a second mortgage, on a second note. There's a note that they sign off on that gets recorded with the county. Okay, it's basically saying that there's a second lien on the property. There's a second mortgage. It's not a grant, right? It's not completely forgiven at the time of closing. That's the only way we're able to get around this. But the reason why I say that is because if you're borrowing $50,000 from Broward, okay, but you're doing a condo that has no budget, you still can borrow the $50,000. It's still going to make your payment lower because it's going towards your total loan. But you as a client still need to be prepared to come in with 10% down plus closing costs. Plus closing costs. It's not just the 10% down, it's with the closing costs as well. Because all of that 50,000 is considered a loan, right? All of it. And so when it's considered a loan, I can't just take 40,000 and then use the other 10 as a grant. And then the other 10 being a grant can go towards closing costs because then now it doesn't hit my CLTV. No, that other 10,000, even if I were to take 40 and then put 10 towards closing costs, it's still hitting my CLTV, my combined loan to value. So it's not going to be able to be included in the closing costs because the maximum is 90%. That's where that combined loan to value stops. So the client still has to come in with 10% plus the closing costs. Okay, it's a little bit confusing trying to understand why the closing costs are not included in there. The reason why is because when you're doing a normal loan, when you're doing a townhouse single family with down payment assistance, you can go up to 105% CLTV, right? That's why closing costs are not included sometimes in those other properties because you're going 100% loan to value. You're borrowing, if it's 200,000, you're borrowing 200,000, and now you're getting an extra 5%, which is an extra $10,000. That $10,000 is what's covering the closing costs. But your combined loan to value is still at that time in this scenario 105. Okay, That's the reasoning. In this case, we cannot pass 90%. So I tell clients all the time, you still, if you're doing a condo, the only way, and it's tough, right? Because if you're looking for down payment assistance, you don't have the money, right? You don't have the money. Most of the time, I would say 9 times out of 10. Sometimes you do have the money, but you still, because you're good at saving, you still want to utilize the DPA funds. Perfect. Let's do it. And then, still you're just understand that you're still going to have to come in with 10% out of pocket if you're doing a condo with no reserves, right? But for the most part, you don't have the funds. So I try to be upfront, let the client know we have to get a condo and we're scraping a condo with reserves. Because if not, 10% plus closing costs, and that's typically the issue that we would have. And it's more specific for the Broward one, but it's specific to any sort of down payment assistance, because all the down payment assistance programs right now, most of them are second mortgages. They become forgivable after some time, but they start off as a second mortgage. Does that make sense? You guys have any questions on that?
Just to clarify, with the limited and the full reviews, that if the condo has a full review, then the buyer can put as little as 5% down. Can they go any lower than 5%?
Yeah, they can do. They can do 3% if they're a first-time home buyer.
Okay, and then when it's a limited review, the minimum amount is usually what, 25%, correct?
Typically, yes. So your maximum loan to value for Fannie is 75% on a primary. Your maximum combined loan to value, meaning if you take out a second loan, would be 90%. And that's really where Broward County has come into play. It's still great for borrowers that qualify for it, because a lot of these times, you guys know about the 75-15 program. That's basically like before, in the past couple of years, if there was a condo that didn't have reserves, you would still say, loan officers say, we can still do it at 10% down. Because what happens is Fannie Mae, they still require you to do 75%. Like your first loan, your conventional loan has to be at 75% loan to value. But they allow you to take out a second loan up to 90% and have a second lien on the property and let the second investor take the risk. And so in the past, you would have people take out a second mortgage, which is typically like a HELOC or something like that, and attach it to the property that they're buying. And so they would have 2 separate mortgages, and that's how they'd be able to go up to 90%, because the second mortgage would cover the difference of the 15% from the 75 to the 90. They cover that 15% difference, because Fannie Mae is only going to give you 75% loan to value. Then you'd have, in this case, the company we use is called Symmetry. Well, Symmetry, their interest rates are relatively high, especially right now, because it's based off of the HELOC, it's based off the US prime rate. And so those payments may be $400 a month on a $50,000 loan, and it's interest only payments. So instead of doing Symmetry, if you qualify for Broward, you're getting a 0% interest loan for your second mortgage. It still ends up being worth it for you, because now you're still technically saving $400 a month, right? Because you're utilizing the same guidelines as Fannie Mae says. My conventional loan is going to be 75. The down payment assistance is going to help me with the rest to cover up to 90. And then I come in with 10% down, but that second loan has no payment on it. So I'm only making payments on my first loan, and that's it. So still ends up being beneficial. But yeah, as a full review, technically without down payment assistance, you would do 3% down, Kalia, and then without a second mortgage on a limited review, you would do 25%. But you can come in and do 10% when you couple 2 mortgages together for a limited review, and you can do 105% CLTV on a full review condo that has a budget if you're utilizing down payment assistance as well.
Okay, got it. So basically using the down payment assistance would be a cheaper option overall, especially with the interest rates being so high with that other company, Symmetry, or what you're saying. And then if you could get them qualified, if they have the because it's income based for Broward County down payment assistance. So if they qualify for that and they could get their condo, then it'd be cheaper all around for them to go that route.
Typically, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. You guys have any other questions on the budget? You guys kind of see where you can get some discounts now on the condo budgets to help it be a little bit more favorable. And then that way, that's why I say don't listen to the listing agents. They may know, they may have a loan officer that did review it, but kind of want to always get a second pair of eyes, because there's sometimes that we can do things that other companies just don't know about, or they're just not comfortable with, right? With the deductions and stuff like that. Because ultimately, if Fannie does audit the file, you have to, explain how you got to that 10% reserve that doesn't initially show on when you're actually just looking at it one for one. No questions at all on the budgets or the condo stuff? Okay. All right. Well, it is 10:30. Anything that you guys need throughout the week, reach out to us. Hope you guys have a great week, and we will see you next Monday. There is no, as long as it's not a holiday, I'll see you next Monday. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike. Hey, Mike, can I call you in
Thanks
about
again.
5 minutes?
No problem. Yeah, Kia, give me a call.
Thanks.
You, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
No problem.